Hello, everyone. Sean Gorse here with Real Estate Technology Experts. If you're joining us here today, this is our a new thing that we're doing, a new webinar in addition to the Tech Tune-Up that I host normally on Tuesdays. This is a chance for us to go. I really wanted this to be a chance to go in depth on specific products that I think, or I've gotten suggestions from others that are profitable technologies to use in your real estate business and to leverage yourself in your real estate business. And I've got Dan, the founder of Follow Up Boss, Dan Corkle, on the line here as well. Dan, if you could say hello.
Oh, hey everyone.
And Dan, Dan, you were it was you and I think one other fellow were the founders of this real estate CRM Follow Up Boss, right?
Yeah, that's right. Me and my partner Tom, we started about 2 years ago working on this software, and yeah, we just really honed in on the real estate niche and um, what brokers and agents need. And so we've been working with brokers and agents for about a year now, and yeah, it's really going really well.
Okay. Yeah, and just so anybody who hasn't maybe been on one of my webinars before, I keep this pretty informational, conversational. I don't know if I would say informal, but pretty I guess pretty relaxed and laid back. This isn't some, you know, high pressure sales pitch webinar, but obviously Dan has a product that he thinks and I think might be a value for you. And I don't think there's one particular thing that is right for every single real estate agent out there. You'll never hear me say that. I think it depends on your situation.
You'll hear me say that.
Oh well. Oh hey Jim, you're on. How you doing?
Good. Sorry, guys. Sorry, I'm running a little late.
That's okay. That's okay. I
But
was
I'm
just
I'm excited to see this product. So yes, yes. As
yeah.
a
So
as a
I'll
guy who taught and sold top producer for only less than a year. So please don't get on my back. And then have sold tens of thousands of copies of Agent Office. I'm always looking for the next best thing. So I'm excited about this call.
good. Good. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And I'm gonna flip the presentation over to Dan here in a minute. In the meantime, if you have joined us live, and if there's any questions or things that you have about the product or Dan's software, you can use the GoToWebinar control panel. Ask your question in there in that GoToWebinar control panel that you logged in with, and we'll save some time at the end for questions, hopefully. But yeah, so I just wanted to stress again, we're not, we are looking at, this might be a good fit, and I think, Dan, you'd probably agree, not one thing is right for every single person out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so at the start of the webinar, I think we're going to just talk a little bit about the strategy behind converting online leads, what some of the other top teams are doing, so that people on the call can hopefully get some value out of it, even if they're not really looking to purchase our product in particular. Hopefully, they can take something away and apply it to their business.
Yeah, I would like you to talk about that. We don't have some big type of scripted webinar here, but you did email me over a couple of points, observations that I think people should focus, not especially if you're listening to this webinar as we go through this software. Don't focus just on the features. You can get caught up in that and forget about why it makes business sense in terms of the benefits. So um, I know, Dan, I've heard you reference a lot of this stuff, and I think a lot of it is best practices that probably a lot of the other top agents that you work with are doing. So take it away and let us know, and maybe myself or Jim will jump in if we have a question.
Yeah, please do jump in, and yeah, everyone on the call, yeah, feel free to jump in with any questions. Let's keep it nice and interactive. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've got a few slides prepared, and we just call this webinar the fundamentals of online lead conversion. Skipping this webinar may be hazardous to your income. So Sean introduced me already. I'll just skip over this slide quickly. If you can't tell by the accent, I am Australian. So
Sounded Minnesotan to me.
awesome. Um,
Where
yeah,
are you,
so
Dan? what part of the country are you? Here in the States, or are you down
No,
under?
I'm actually overseas at the moment in Turkey.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this is a very international webinar. It's
Wow. Wow. Got little chills on my spine. Okay. I won't interrupt anymore.
No, please do. So I guess the thing is, whenever you're thinking about improving your business, you want to think big. Like I know that there's all these stats out there about the average income of a real estate agent. You got to realize small businesses are small for a reason. A lot of them aren't action takers. They don't implement systems, and they don't understand marketing and effective marketing, and more importantly, making money from your marketing. They sort of just throw a lot of different things out there. Like they might go and buy a lot of internet leads, but they're not necessarily worried about converting them. So, yeah, just try and expand your mindset. Um, think about the sources of information you're getting. Like, you don't want to be getting information from people that are making 35K a year, because then that's going to obviously affect your results. So, yeah, today we'll give this quick talk and give you guys some strategies you can take away. We'll hone in on what you need to focus on, especially if you want to use the internet to grow your business, which I think is still the number one opportunity out there for real estate teams. And the teams that have been crushing it in the downturn, almost all of them are focusing on just internet leads, and they've really managed to grow their business in amazing ways. And sort of, I think they're the ones that are most well positioned when we come out of this downturn, is to continue on growing a really strong business with a really strong business model on the internet. Then we'll give you a bit of a demo about how our software works, and we can jump into some Q&A. And yeah, then at the end, if you guys want, we can tell you where to get free internet leads, because it's really about the lead conversion, not about necessarily where you're getting your leads from. Okay, so here's a quick story about past performance analysis. Sean, do you have like a friend who says like, "Oh, I've been going to the gym 3 times a week"? Do you know anyone like that? Maybe Jim.
Yeah, Jim. See, the thing is, Jim goes to the gym, but he actually looks halfway decent. So
Oh, yeah. I was screwing around with my phone here, so I just missed the insult, but that works for me.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you ask someone how often they've been going to the gym, someone might say, "Yeah, I've been going 3 days a week." But when you ask them about the past, how many times did you go last week? That's a lot of the times when you start hearing the excuses like, "Oh, Monday I was busy picking the kids up from school, and Tuesday was parent-teacher night, and then Wednesday, that just wasn't a good day for me." And so when you break it down, how many times that person went to the gym last week might have been one, or it might have been none at all. So people are incredibly optimistic about their performance, but the only way you can really measure it is if you look at their past performance.
right.
So yeah, just to take this back to lead conversion, is you've got to look at how your last 10 leads were treated, or your last 100 leads, and that kind of can give you a pretty good indicator. If your last 10 leads weren't treated very well, it's very likely your next 10 leads aren't going to be treated very well, unless you make some changes, obviously, to the systems you have in place and the processes. Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, yeah, I was just gonna say, as a real estate agent, this hit home for me too, because I've got kind of two inside sales agents that handle most of our leads, and then the one gal, she handles all of our hot leads, like the ones that just come in and for sales sign calls. And then
Yep.
she went to Arkansas over the weekend, and and so basically, I'm sure there's a lot of people on the call that can relate to this. Um, um, I had only found out about that a couple days ahead of time, so I am her backup. So by default, then, because I didn't have another backup assigned, I became the one trying to follow up with all these leads, and I've got 4 kids under the age of 6 and all that kind of stuff. So it was a pretty crazy time. So I'm glad to have her back, but I totally agree with past performance, because it's easy to talk to another agent and say, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, but it's like
Exactly.
the devil's in the
Exactly.
details of what actually happened, right? That's what you're kind of getting
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, you can't earn any money just talking about stuff. You have to um, actually do it. So, yeah, past performance is the best indicator of future performance and what's implemented. If you didn't treat your last 10 leads well, it's very likely the next 10 aren't going to be treated well, and it's extremely likely the next 100. And you could take this off over a whole year, and that could be like 1,000 leads. And that's when you start to realize, um, across 1,000 leads, if I didn't treat them well, imagine how much money I'm leaving on the table. Like, imagine how many customers are out there. They're coming into my business wanting help, but I'm not helping them because I'm not just providing, good, fast service, follow up, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it just has dramatic effects, I think, when you think about it in those terms. Uh, so yeah, the number one most important thing that I've noticed top teams are performing on, and they're really focusing in on, is the speed of response. So when a lead comes in, how fast are you getting back to that person? Like, are you taking a couple of hours? 15 minutes is extremely good. 5 minutes is even better. There's been studies done by like MIT about how much that impacts the chance of you getting a hold of that person and the chance of that person becoming a customer. And it's kind of scary to look at the numbers. It's something like 21 times more likely to qualify someone if you call them in the first hour. I think it's something like 100 times more likely to contact them if you call in the first 5 minutes, because that first 5 minutes after they've made an inquiry, that's when they're sitting next to their computer or they've got their mobile phone out looking at real estate. And that's when they really want to hear from someone. Like, a couple of hours later, they might have heard from 3 agents by then. They might be, having dinner, all kinds of things. So focusing on that speed of response is the number one thing. I think if people implement this, they'll see more results.
Yeah, and Dan too. And actually, in real estate, we don't have to worry about this too much, but it has happened to me where I didn't follow up with a lead right away, especially like you're saying, like a lead who looks at a whole bunch of properties or has a whole bunch of questions where you can tell they're pretty far along in the process. If
Sure.
you don't call them back, another good real estate agent could be the one to call them back and get a hold of them first.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's happened to me a few times too. The big battle is just even calling them back and getting hold of them live. But in some markets, I mean, there are other real estate agents out there who do that, and you're going to lose out. you know.
Well, it's funny. I had a sale this spring where it was a floor call, and literally the customer called and said, "I'd like to see this property." And I said, "Great, when can you see it?" And I met them at the property, showed it to them, and while we were there, the client got a phone call, and he said, "No, I'm sorry, you didn't get back to me soon enough. I'm here seeing the property right now." And he hung up on the guy, and that guy looked at one condo and bought it, a $300,000 condo. So
Wow.
speed of response is there's no doubt about it. And to piggyback on it, it's not just real estate. I have a vacation rental, and 95% of the people who rent from me will reply and say, "Wow, you are the quickest to get back to me." And that sets the whole tone for the entire transaction. And I don't want to get up on on the soapbox here, but I had this discussion with a family member of mine who's in financial planning. He's a stockbroker and all that stuff. And he said, "Yeah, but I don't want to have to take all these phone calls." He said, "So I got to give everybody my cell phone." And I said, "No, no, 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 no. You're confusing response to accessibility. It's okay to let people send you an email inquiry or leave you a voice message, but the clock starts ticking the second that goes into the system." So I'm hoping that, Dan, when we talk about CRM, that there's a way that it triggers it to you and allows you to have to listen to that message and then decide, I need to get back to this. And so responsiveness is different than accessibility. You have to have systems in place so people can get their information to you, make a request. You have to have the ability to be able to see that, reject it, make a decision, or respond to it as quickly as possible. But responsiveness is, in my opinion, more impressive than accessibility because it shows that you have systems in place and it's more reasonable. If you want to have a life, there has to be a
Yeah.
time where you turn it off. So there's my soapbox.
No, you raised a really good point, I think, about setting the tone of the transaction straight away. Because if you get back to someone in like 2 minutes, imagine how much that sets you apart from, a part-time real estate agent. I mean, do you want to look like you're doing this on the side, like it's sort of like, a hobby almost, or do you want to look like a professional business, which is getting back to people, bam, 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 like, um, I think that really does. You're right. It sets the tone straight away as like really professional. And I guess I've never sold a house, but I can just throw in my personal story from like a month ago. I was looking for a new apartment to rent, and I called 10 real estate agents off the internet. The first one I called ended up being the person I dealt with because he picked up his phone quickly. He followed up with me later, and he was professional on the phone. Like, he was interested in my needs. I was very specific about what I wanted. Like, I wanted fiber internet so I can run my business. The other 9 people I called, none of them followed up after that call. They weren't interested in my needs at all. They just were like trying to do the old, you know, not understand the client, just sort of like, oh yeah, we'll get you these other properties and send them across to you. But then they didn't even do that. So I mean, no one else was even in the race then. You know what I mean? Like, there was just that one guy, and I think it's the same really in the States with internet leads. If you're providing like top-notch service, I think you'll find like there's very few other people in the race in a lot of markets.
Without a doubt, our industry is, and that isn't an excuse to say, hey, take your time, but
Yeah, no, not at all.
it's so easy to stand out in our business because so many people in our business are bottom feeders, and so it's easy, and setting a goal for this. So, well, let's keep rolling here because I know
Yep.
people want to
Yeah, go ahead.
get to the meat.
Sure. Let's keep moving. So there's that stat. You're 100 times more likely to contact a client within 5 minutes versus calling even within 30 minutes. 74% of buyers and 76% of sellers work with the first agent they talk to. I think everyone's seen that stat from the NAR. Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com. I mean, they're sending leads out to like 4 agents at a time. I mean, you're not the first one to call them back. Kind of like Jim's story, you're going to be the last person, basically. The Good Life team, I mean, they do a 5-minute callback guarantee to their sellers. So when they go out and do a listing appointment, they say, we're going to call all the people that are interested in your home back in 5 minutes, because they know that's important for actually selling the home. And it's also important for their business because, like we just talked about, that's how you get buyers in, that's how you convert people. So, I mean, I think they do like 60% of their business from internet leads. And, I see people, if you're not doing 60% of your business from internet leads, imagine if you were. Like, if you're doing all the stuff you're doing now, plus 60% of it was, internet leads. So yeah, 15 minutes is good, 5 is better. And kind of like Sean has in place now, once you get this to like a bit of a fine art, like you've got the systems in place, you can get people to actually be calling the leads for you. So you mentioned you've got 2 people in place, Sean?
Right. Yep.
Awesome. And how long have you had those guys for?
Pardon?
How long have they been on board?
Well, actually, I used to do the inside sales for the team starting 8.5 years ago when we started with Craig Proctor coaching. And
Yep.
then I found our first inside sales agent. That was probably, well, actually, I know when it was actually because it was 7 years ago because I was about to get married and go on a 3.5 week honeymoon. And so,
Nice.
by my situation, I was forced to replace myself. And so I hired this really nice guy, Brian, who was
It would have been easier to send somebody else on the honeymoon.
somehow that didn't appeal to me as much as
okay. You didn't
going across Europe with my wife, my new bride. But yeah, so long story short, so we've had somebody in that role now for 7 years, and actually what I'm switching to now is focusing even more on those hot leads in addition to the nurture of the other leads is I'm taking agents on my team, outside sales agents who I know are good over the phone, and saying, here, do you want to sign up, to get these hot leads? But you have to, and this is where it gets scary. I'm sure you're going to lead into this. I mean, it's one thing when it's scary when you're the one that has to follow up with the leads, but when you're paying for all of these leads and you're trusting, or you're entrusting other people to follow up with the leads, you need a way to quickly see what is happening with those leads. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
are they really getting called back? Because anybody can tell you anything. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, they weren't interested, or it's like, oh yeah, well you didn't reach 50% of the people because you didn't try them until 24 hours later. What do you expect? But
Yeah.
anyways, it gets even, it magnifies the problem if you don't have it sorted out on a team, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I talk to a lot of teams. Initially, they don't have any system in place, and they're just burning money on leads basically. And sort of what situation they're in a lot of the time, the broker is sitting there all day waiting for the leads to come into his email inbox. Then he's forwarding them out to agents. So he's spending like about half an hour to an hour a day doing that. And then, like you say, he doesn't even know what the agents are doing. And we kind of know they're not doing very much because none of those deals are coming back to close. Um, and so, yeah, it is scary because, like you say, you're spending all that money. Um, yeah, let's keep rolling. Um, phone calls. So we talked to a lot of teams and they're not calling any of their internet leads basically. So we sort of suggest start off calling each lead 3 times. Like, so focus on one really fast call and then try 2 calls later in the week. 5 is better. There's been a lot of studies done on the optimal amount of calls to make. And I think when you go from making 4 calls to 5 calls, it just the increase in people you talk to is just massive. So that's important. And I call it ABS, always be serving. Listen deeply to people's needs, as opposed to always be closing.
I like that.
So what do you guys do, Sean? Like when a new lead comes in, how many phone calls would you typically place that to someone
Right.
from the
So,
internet?
well, we adopted Ben Kinney, a mega agent out in outside of Seattle.
Awesome, yeah,
He's
some 10 days of pain action.
yeah. I renamed it. I renamed it 10 Days to Success, uh,
Yep.
because I wanted to put a positive spin. But I get what he's going after, and he's selling 500 houses a year. But yeah, so we follow that, and to be frank, I got another piece of advice from Steve Cantor, who runs a virtual assistant company called Best Agent Business.
Yep.
He was saying, Sean, really, that job of calling people back is two different personality types. One is, if you know this DISC profile um, that a lot of people use, it's a behavior test.
Yep,
Uh,
I've heard of it.
yeah,
Sure.
Tony Robbins has a free one now that you can take. And he said, to call the people back right away, you need somebody who's a high D, who is very responsive and energetic and obviously motivated and has the time. But then if they don't reach them right away, then you need other people who are willing to do that consistent follow up. Because I've even had great inside sales agents. They did a great job at trying to call people back in the first day or two, and then like you say, they never got to that 5 calls, or Ben Kinney talks about call them every day for 10 days until they call you back.
Yep.
And so I've kind of gotten some advice from different people and trying to implement that. We've gone from the 10 days to success to now where I actually have one person on just like the first 24 hours, and then I have a different virtual caller, really nice lady in Atlanta, Georgia, who does the calls after 24 hours. So that's what we
Oh,
came
that's
up with
awesome. Yep.
at the moment.
And is that through that My Agent Out business, or is that just someone else you found?
Oh, through Best
Um,
Agent Business, I happened to find this person myself because if any of these tips are useful for anybody else in the call, I just posted on Facebook. I said I need more inside sales agents who like being on the phone and in front of a computer and connecting with people. And
That's awesome.
yeah, so it was a friend of mine saw that, and she had a friend that she had gone to college with, and I'd said, yeah, anywhere, basically anywhere in the United States, or I've had people overseas, which is can work out too, but so basically anywhere in the United States is fine, and we'll just set them up and get them going.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, let's keep moving. So, yeah, you want to try and set people up with an MLS property drip when they come in. I mean, this is the most valuable thing, I think, that the most valuable information, I guess, an agent has really in their arsenal of what to send someone via email. I mean, you can send them a really nicely crafted email, saying you're going to help them, but really buyers want to look at properties. I mean, that's the most interesting thing for someone who wants to buy a house, is to see pictures of houses and prices and things like that. So how do you guys manage that at the moment, Sean? Like, I know you're on the Boomtown system. That
Yeah,
does a
right.
lot of
And
it
that
for
was
you.
a point that I made with that you'll have to, explain to people too, because a lot of these either IDX systems, either a standalone IDX or something like Boomtown, they've got those MLS property drips, which is which is all well and good. But that's where I thought your system was kind of unique in that it's not tied to one lead management or lead, I should say, lead capture mechanism. So it's not tied to Boomtown. It's not tied to DSIDX or diverse solutions or something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think
So
you called it website neutral, which is a pretty good description.
okay, yeah, I came up with that. You didn't. So if that's not if that's not accurate,
Trademark.
here's your chance to correct it. But
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it is lead source neutral. So I mean, what when we would uh, discovering this problem, we were talking to a lot of brokers and agents, and one guy just said, "Look, Dan," his name was Marty, and he said, "Dan, I've got all these leads. I'm paying for leads from over here. I've got my WordPress website. I've got leads coming in from over here." He said, "The problem is they just all come into my email, and then I'm sending them out to other agents' email, and then nothing's happening because I don't know. There's no accountability there. There's no accountability system in place." Um, so that's how we kind of realize what a big problem this is. A lot of people have all these different leads, and they have to check different systems and be checking their email constantly to see what's happening. And then, of course, if that one person, like the broker, goes away for a weekend, or like in Sean's case, your lead coordinator goes away for a weekend, kind of everything slows down. And in this case, it just stops actually. If there's one person in the middle distributing leads, if that person is asleep or in a meeting, or like if you go on a holiday, God forbid, um, the whole everything stops. I mean, those leads, we're talking about getting back to leads a couple of hours later. Those leads are not going to be getting any response at all, and there's not even a chance of that happening. So that's how we came up with the problem, and that's why we realized our system really needs to work with the lead sources people already have and the lead sources people are going to have in the future. But yeah, let's keep
that's right.
rolling. Um, so non-responsive leads, I think this is a big area where people can again like just get an easy win. A lot of people stop emailing their leads. A lot of a lot of cases where there's no system in place, the lead may not get any email or just get one email on the first day. But you can integrate like a pretty simple drip campaign. Just to send them a really short email, say, hey, how's your home search going? Is there anything I can be doing for you at the moment while you're searching online? And you can just send this out to people, who you can't get on the phone. Um, and yeah, we're finding people get a pretty good response rate with this. And it's once you've set it up, it's a system. I mean, this is going to be working for you when you're, on holidays, when you're away, when you're really busy. Because I guess that's another problem that people run into is they get busy with a few transactions, then they forget to follow up their leads. Then those transactions close. Then they're kind of, asking themselves, where did all the business go? Because they haven't been filling their pipeline. Um, when they've been busy with those other buyers they've been working with. So yeah,
Right.
this is just a bit of a backup system really to make sure that everyone is at least getting some kind of communication from you. Because there can be someone like Jim's example before, someone who's ready to buy. They just need something. They need to hear back from you. If they're not getting phone calls or emails, the chance of them becoming a client is basically zero.
Dan, have you seen any results? We've been noticing better results when one of my agents, excuse me, um, started these new very conversational emails where it looks like
Sure.
you actually just like wrote it in a couple seconds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it
They're the
actually just
perfect
say like,
ones.
call me, or do you need to sell a house too? And then it'll just be like kind of like a comment or a question in the subject line, and then literally one sentence that's like 8 to 10 words long.
Yeah.
Um, we've noticed huge response rates with that. I don't
You
know.
can also, yeah, that's perfect, and that's exactly the kind of emails I think everyone should be going for. I mean, you don't want to. I've seen people write an essay there, like they just have this template they paste in. It's like if that person wanted to read a book, it would be the perfect email. But if they just wanted to,
It's even
engage with you, it would be
it's even
terrible.
better when the font isn't the same, or
Yeah.
like when
Oh,
they copy and paste it from Microsoft Word and there's all these weird characters still in there. I love those.
Hey, hey,
sure.
hey! Now you guys are getting a little close to home here.
Do you do that, Jim? You copy and paste from Word, and
I steal from everybody.
it's got like
No, you're
bold
absolutely
and
right. The shorter, the sweeter. It gives the impression that you're literally going, "Hey, just don't." I use Zerple, and it sends out some really short, sweet. Hey, notice you've been, you're one of our most active people on our site. Have you found, something? And the shorter ones are the ones they respond to. No doubt about it.
hmm,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, another just quick little tip there is you can write like sent from my iPhone. So this is definitely personal.
Even
I
if
like
you're
that.
not, even if you don't have an iPhone.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
like that. Very good.
Just don't show up at their house with like a one of those 1980s ones.
No,
Yeah, your
it
Nokia from.
look. Let's make the leap here. It should be sent from my iPad.
You just sent
Yeah,
from my
that
iPad.
works as well.
Just
Way cooler than an iPhone.
you could say sent from my secret new beta test iPhone 5. That'd probably get a couple of responses,
See,
right?
now you're taking it too far.
That's just Jim. That's just for people under 35. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome. So a few tips there. Everyone now on this call now has iPhones. Um, so this slide, the numbers of lead conversion. So most people give up on internet leads before they've reached the point where closing a transaction would even be possible. So like if it takes 100 calls to have 40 conversations and 40 conversations to close a transaction, well, most people never make the 100 calls in the first place. So there's a lot of people out there who have tried internet leads and they make like 5 calls and they didn't call people back fast and they didn't follow up later, and then they've just concluded that internet leads don't work. Well, it's yeah, it's just a false really belief, I guess. It's sort of more a case of you need to follow the process. If you don't follow the process, you're never going to get the result
Yeah,
that
I
you
tell
want.
people, the inside sales agents that join our team, or actually before, when I'm doing like the first phone interview, I'll say you need to be okay with a massive amount of failure at this job.
Sure, yeah,
And Jay Kinder and Michael Reese interviewed this guy, Darren Hardy of Success Magazine, publisher of Success Magazine, and he was talking about the same thing about if you want to experience massive success, you have to experience massive failure. And the the example that I always use is like the best baseball hitters in the world are thrilled to fail 70% of the time
yeah,
because their batting average is 30%. That's an awesome batting average. And so you got when you're calling leads back, you have to psychologically be able to take this approach that like you say, like hundreds, like, oh, I only talked to 40 people and it only ended up in one closing. Well, you can play around with those numbers a little bit depending on your skill set, but really most of it is the coming in with the psychology, which I think is part of the reason that people quit. Is because they think, oh, I just called 20 people today and nobody wanted to buy a house. It's like, no, no, no. You got to call like at least 10 people an hour. You know, this is a much bigger number than what you're thinking is what you have to call. That's what I that's what I've come
Sure.
up with
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. It is psychological, like you say, and I mean, you just really need to be aware of the process, not and you can break this process down. I think that's what really helps once you understand it, and because some people I think are going out there and they don't understand how critical speed of response is. Like they kind of logically understand it, but they just don't really understand the difference in results they're going to get if they follow this stuff and like they implement something like you talked about, like a 10 days of success or a 10 days of pain. So yeah, I mean it's night and day between the people that are following the process and getting results, and then there's the people who are just letting these internet leads come in. And I think if that's the case and you're not doing anything to convert them, you should just stop paying for them because what's the point, really? Focus on something else, like focus on a different strategy.
Yeah.
So this slide's good. I love this one. Address your business. I think we kind of talked about this slightly before, Sean. Address the problems your business actually has. So a lot of people are sort of worried about what's the latest developments with Zillow and Realtor.com and all the rest of it. But really, what is the things that are going to make a difference in your business? Like for a lot of people I know, it's lead conversion. Like they've got a lot of online leads, and what they really need to focus on is lead conversion. But if you go out in sort of the online world, Facebook and real estate groups, and I'm sure like real estate meetups as well, there's a lot of people talking about where you get your internet leads from. Like, and for most people, that's just not the problem. So you've got to really be aware of your own business, and where are the things that you could change in your business, which would dramatically change your profits and your lifestyle basically. So yeah, you're the one that has to pay attention to your numbers. Opinions from other people are often well intentioned. They can often be really good advice, but they're often also useless because if you don't know your numbers, there's no way someone else is going to know your numbers. So how can they give you good advice basically? Because no one really knows what the numbers are driving your business. Yeah, this is the example I see a lot on Facebook. Should I buy Zillow or Trulia leads? I mean, for the people that don't have any system in place to convert their leads, the question is completely pointless. I mean, if you're converting your Zillow leads, why wouldn't you go and buy Trulia leads as well? I mean, why wouldn't you add that to your funnel? Focus on serving your customers. So again, this is just addressing your business. Focus on serving your own customers rather than worrying about what's going on, what everyone else is doing. And I just think this is true. Like if you call a website provider, they're going to try and sell you a website, and that doesn't matter if you need one or not. If you call Zillow, I'm sure those guys are going to sell you their marketing package, and they're not going to drill you on is this the right thing for your business. You've got to sort of be aware of that yourself. Like, what do you actually need? Did that make sense, Sean?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think most of us are getting, especially if you're in any way syndicating your listings to Zillow or Trulia or Realtor.com or something else, and they're happy to tell you how there's only space for 5 agents here, and in this
Exactly.
zip code, and you better buy them now to lock up your zip code. But I mean, I'm coming to this realization for our own team too. If you just make slight little tweaks to how quickly you follow up with every lead, or like the emails that you send or the script that you use, I mean, you can cut your lead generation budget. If you're a bigger team, you can cut it by thousands of dollars a month
Sure.
because there's
Absolutely.
actually your sales conversion funnel is so leaky. I mean, you just
Yes.
if you like if you just set aside a Friday night or a early Saturday morning and go through your last 100 leads, if you're even tracking them, I bet you would probably get sick to your stomach, because the failure rate is absolutely horrendous. So I think you're right. Most agents are looking at the top of the funnel. They've got all these leaks coming out of the funnel that they haven't patched up, but they look at the top of the funnel and they say, I need more water. And it's like, well, no, you don't need more water. You just have to fix the leaks you've got in this thing, and develop a way to hold people accountable, right? I don't know. That's
Yeah,
my
no, you're spot on. I think that is the biggest leverage point people have. And yeah, there's no point having that funnel of leads coming in from all these different sites and they're not converting them into money, because that's when you get paid. I mean, everyone else is happy to sell you leads and sell you websites and things all day long. I mean, anyone can spend money. There was a study done by, I think it was Market Leader or Active Rain or something, and it was sort of showing what the agents earning 35K a year are spending money on, and then what the agents earning 100K plus are spending money on. And it's practically the same. I mean, the numbers were slightly bigger for the 100K agents, but it's just all the same stuff. So the difference is never going to be what you buy. It's going to be your process for converting leads.
Yep.
So yeah, and you touched on exclusivity, I think, like saying there's only five 5 spots. I mean, exclusivity is the oldest sales trick in the book. I mean, it's extremely effective because everyone has a fear of missing out and a fear of their competitors sort of, getting in there. And so that's why that works really well as a sales tactic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, just past performance analysis. Just try and have a think now, guys, about how your last 10 leads were treated. Did they get a fast response? Did they get multiple phone calls? Did they get emails? Did you help them with their home search in any way? Because if you didn't, there's no way they're becoming customers. And just again, yeah, past performance is the best indicator of what's implemented in your business. If you didn't treat your last 10 leads well, the next 10 isn't looking great. Just talk quickly about distractions. Social media is great. I think I met you on Facebook, right, Sean?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, social media is great. It can be leveraged for a lot of things. I see some realtors doing cool stuff there, but it can also be a massive distraction. I know I spend too much time on Facebook.
I had an agent send me, wanted me to like her listing.
Oh my God.
I wanted to puke. It's like, come on, people. I mean,
Yep.
yeah, it's just gotten, we're, I guess it's like the world is, what do they say? If you look through if you're a hammer, you look at the world as everything is a nail. And it's just gotten that weird with social media. I don't want to like your listing. Don't email a bunch of realtors saying, like my listing. How about show it? I mean, it just, but that's me. I'm getting to be an old fart.
Yeah, no, it is out of hand, really. And I mean, this is again like, well, what are people selling on webinars now? They're selling social media packages to agents. Like, I'm not saying there's no value there. I'm just saying, think about really what's going to get results in your business, because it's not being on Twitter, it's not being on Facebook. It's the fundamentals.
Right.
I mean,
right. I saw somebody come into our office here with Top Producer, and they were pushing their market snapshot, which I think is actually a really kind of a cool tool. But the point they made is that the internet, social media, and all these things are supposed to replace the old form of advertising of print media. That we are not doing so much print anymore. We're not running things in newspapers anymore. And he showed a pie chart, and he said in the past, for a healthy real estate agent, no more than 20% of their business came from print advertising. And what's happened is these web providers have all tried to make us believe that now 90% of our business is going to come from the web, which is and the reason they're trying to convince us this is because they can sell us stuff. They can't sell me a package that makes me go to city council meetings. They can't sell me a package that helps me, that makes me volunteer at a dog rescue in the local area. They can't sell me a package that teaches me to get to know my dry cleaner in person, face to face, on a first name basis. Or hang out at the same coffee shop every Saturday morning, get to know people there, because they can't sell us that. But I'll tell you that's where 80% of my business comes from. It comes from being social, not sitting at my computer trying to chase down a bunch of strangers. Real estate is about, I don't care how you slice this, it's about local. In fact, Sean and I were joking the other day, a very, very successful agent that we both know is now contacting me and saying, we've never done follow-up with our past customers.
Yeah.
And I about fell out of
amazing.
my chair. And because he's been so convinced that it's all about wooing strangers. And you know what? I was told your first 2 years is wooing strangers. After that, 80% of your business comes from the people you've made very happy by selling them property. So I don't want to get off track here, but Dan, I'm at the point now, we're looking at 47 minutes into this, and I'm going to cut to the chase here and say this is great stuff. I want to see your product. I really do, because I'm tight on time here, and I'd like to see what it does. So
awesome.
I'm going to kind of put the hammer down and say, because I understand all this, and I think most of the people on the phone call do. I think we do cater to a higher level of people here. So let's see what this thing does. And I'm getting that partly because the questions are starting to say, does it, what does it track? How does it do it? Et cetera, et cetera. So enough said. Show us your stuff.
Yeah, fantastic. So, like we talked about before, Follow Up Boss is basically a lead management system. It's similar to a CRM, except that things are more automated. So with some of the traditional CRMs, you need to sit there and actually type in your leads into the system. Now, we've been talking on this call about things that make money, and one of the things that definitely does not make money is sitting there doing data entry into your CRM. It's important that the leads get in there, but there are ways to automate that, and that's what our system does. So leads do come into it automatically from whatever lead source you have. As long as you're getting an email, it can be sent into our system automatically.
So do you guys set up like a template that knows how to grab it the way the data is sent to me? It maps it and is able to then force it over or push it into your system?
Yeah, exactly. We give you like a unique email address, and then instead of leads being sent to your email address, you just send them to the unique one we've given you, and they'll flow straight in.
Okay.
Now, then you'll be able to see, once they're in the system, you're going to be able to see like which agent they were assigned to, and you're going to start to see, which of your marketing is working, because that's all going to be tallied for you automatically.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that. I track that stuff now on spreadsheets, just so you know.
Right.
And I have been for years. So I like to actually see a system that lays it out, especially by agent and by lead source, because you got to hold your lead, you got to hold your lead generation dollars accountable, and then if you've got anybody besides yourself, you got to be able to hold your agents accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so once that lead comes in, we have some options basically. You can get an email to your email address with all the leads details, all their Facebook details, and they'll basically look like, let me see what the example is here. They'll look like this. So you get an email, you'll see all the details, you'll be able to see the inquiry they made, their Facebook information, so you get a bit more of a sense about where they live. They're looking to move from out of town, they just, they already live here. And from there you can click to manage in the system, or if you're on your iPhone or iPad or whatever, you can just hit reply, and any notes you leave in that email and press send, that will get sent across to the system. Now, sort of the unique part about our system is you can also get an instant phone call. So like 20 seconds after someone makes an inquiry online, your phone can be ringing saying, "Hi, you've got a new lead, John Smith from Zillow.com. Press 1 to connect now." So you're calling that person back within a minute. Like we talked about, like 5 minutes is good. Like 1 minute, people will just be amazed. And the conversation you have is very different, of course, to because they know exactly why you're calling.
Right.
So yeah, that's how that works, and that's sort of like one of the more unique things about our system. If you're using it in a team environment, if that first person doesn't connect, it calls the next agent, so that no matter what, that lead is going to get responded to fast, because sort of as we've talked about, that sort of instant response, that's really the biggest leverage point most people have. If their whole business was the same, but they suddenly implemented a 5-minute response, they'll make more money. I mean, I have no doubt about that. Their marketing would be more effective, and that just means they can spend more money on marketing. I think this is where a lot of the teams now, like who are doing good stuff, like you, Sean, you've got a system in place. You've got 2 lead coordinators. It's going to be very hard for your competitors basically to compete with you as things go forward, because you're mastering lead conversion, whereas they may still be just floundering around, trying to type stuff into a CRM and
Right, right, and that goes back to my point that I was making at the beginning of the call, which is it's technologies are great tools, but it's good to have certain features, but you kind of have to have all 3 leverages set up. You got to have marketing, you got to have technology, and you got to have people. And if that people is just yourself, that's fine. But you got to have all 3 of those lined up and organized. And like you say, for my competitors, I mean, I really view, I mean, we do have other competitors, but my biggest competitor is myself. Like,
yeah,
it's like we had in our MLS last month, we had 4,700 closings just in the St. Paul, Minneapolis MLS. Now, we're one of the biggest teams in the MLS. And I think in last month we had, how many did we have last month? I want to say we had almost 20. We had 20 closings, but it's like a drop in the bucket. And so many times I think when we're talking about, being disciplined and following up in under 5 minutes and that kind of stuff, it's mostly kind of like a game of golf. Like your biggest competitor really isn't Tiger Woods, it's yourself. And
sure,
and
yeah,
and getting your stuff together. So and this is one of the reasons why I wanted you on this call too, was so that people can see there are systems out there like yours that really can help to track and see how well you're doing, and kind of almost even like with that instant call, that it's kind of forcing you to follow up, right? I mean, you could just ignore those calls that come in on your cell phone if you wanted to.
yeah. If you don't want to make money, you can ignore them.
Right, you can just say ignore. I mean, I got 4 kids under 6. I know how life can be with now is not a great time, and then just set up 1 or 2 other people, right? And then it just rolls to them, right?
Well,
Yeah,
if
exactly.
if I get my leads rolled to me on my cell phone, so I'm out in the field, will I get a phone call? It'll say, I'll get some message that says you have a lead coming from. I mean, walk me through that process, Dan.
Yeah, sure. At the moment, it says, you have a new lead from your lead source. So let's just say it's your IDX website. Their name is John Smith, and the price is 300,000. If you'd like to connect now, press 1. If you press 1, your phone is now going to start dialing that lead.
Is there going
Yeah, I
to
like
be a
that.
record of that connection made within your system?
Yeah. So if you see this note here on the webinar, you can see this is what's been left. Broker demo tried to call George Bartlett on the number, but George didn't answer. So that's when he's pressed 1, but then the person on the other end didn't answer the phone. If
It'll
he had answered,
automatically log that. It'll state that on here.
yeah, that's right.
Okay.
If he had answered the phone, it would also have the time, like how long did they talk for? Because if it's 30 seconds, then he probably got the answering machine. But if it's 5 minutes, then well, that was a bit more of a substantial call.
So I don't have to do anything. The system monitors that, and based on the amount of time the call was, it makes a decision and stamps this in here. George didn't answer, and that was based totally on the fact that the call didn't last for very long.
No, this was, in this case, it didn't connect to his phone. So the system does make a decision. I think it's based on like if the call was less than a minute. This bit up here will stay not contacted because it knows that you haven't actually been in contact with that person.
Okay. So now I'm in the field. I get this lead call. I press one. I'm unsuccessful connecting with them. I leave them a voice message. Now I'm back in the office, or I'm back remotely. I'm accessing your system. What is this system going to prompt me to do next?
Yeah, so you'll get some tasks created, for each new lead, and one of them is going to be to call that lead, and the other is going to be to email them. So once someone comes into the system, um, they're going to be in your lead bucket, and they're also going to be on this. This is like the follow up today screen over here, which shows you all the leads that you need to follow up on. So you click that. It shows you all the leads you have tasked for outstanding. And
So if this guy I did not reach, your system would have popped it up here and said still not contacted?
yeah, it will still be up there because you'll have a task to tick off, like to email him.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's how that would go. And if you don't do anything, like you don't log into the system or anything like that, it will show up in the dashboard as unactioned, so everyone can see which how many leads you've got that haven't been actioned, and that will get emailed to you daily as well. We send you a daily email just so you can know, like, here's the leads you've got to follow up today, so that you're starting every day not wondering, well, what have I got to do today? Like, who are those people I got to contact? It's already there for you. It's like, just work through this list every day, and I mean, you're going to increase the amount of people you're closing. So I'll just show you an example of this email. So you
Oh yeah,
get
I
this
like
at
that.
8 o'clock every day. 3 people you need to follow up today. Here's their details. Here's the task you've got for them. Um, so yeah, it keeps it pretty easy like that. And
How do I have a record would you say the system works best if when I'm making my calls, I'm seated in front of it and recording notes? I see here you've got this add a note feature. So am I going to sit here? I'm going to type in a note regarding our conversation here, and then I have the option to assign an individual a specific custom task for follow-up. And I'm assuming that what happens is when these leads come in, it automatically triggers or launches some sort of an automated drip system that I can interrupt. But if I don't, it'll just keep badgering them. Or how does that work?
sure, yeah, we integrate with MailChimp for all our email autoresponders, because you can get pretty advanced in there about how you want to set them up to contact people. But yeah, exactly. Like, if this stays as not contacted, this MailChimp campaign is set up so that it's going to keep dripping them short emails like we talked about before, like just one-liners, just trying to get some engagement, because you just want that person to respond back initially. I mean, then you can work from there. So yeah, you can sort of see here, if they've been opening or clicking on those emails, you get a bit of an idea of what's going on with this person, basically.
Yeah, I like that. I thought that was a compelling feature um, for anybody because we talked about kind of a time thing on the webinar here too. Mailchimp, and then you've got in terms of features, you've got some type of integration with Google Contacts, right?
Yeah, we don't have actually a Google Contacts integration yet.
Oh, okay.
But the next big thing we're working on is like a Gmail and an Outlook integration, so that you'll be able to actually see the emails you've sent this person from your email account. They'll just show up here automatically. There's no need to
Oh, I get you.
BCC an email address or tag an email in Gmail. It'll just show up here, so that, again, we're focusing on automation because there's no point wasting time every day doing that stuff, like forwarding emails to your CRM. Like, that's a no value activity. That doesn't make you money. I mean, a computer can do that for you. Um,
Right. But
so
what you've
that's where we're
taken
going with
things
this stuff.
and
Yeah.
what you've taken things here is not just the speed to first response, but then I see so many agents who are really that, like like you've got here people who you haven't contacted, and I see one called their hot prospects and nurture. So many systems out there that I know real estate agents ask me about. They're really just a glorified contact manager. I mean,
Sure.
they don't actually remind you, hey, these are the people you need to call today. It's like you
Well,
have to remember.
let me dive in here. We've got a question here that says how many campaigns are in the system and how long do they run? I'm assuming at some point early on, you determine based on the source of the lead the kind of drip campaign or the kind of campaign you want to launch. Is that something you do in a setup and you say, okay, these Zillow leads I want this system on, and are these systems created? You guys have created them, and can I go in then and therefore tweak and edit or customize whatever I want within these campaigns?
Yeah. So yeah, it's all handled by MailChimp for the autoresponder, so it's really flexible. You can have a different campaign for every single lead source. And that makes sense, right? Because if you get some leads from Zillow, you want to tell them about your website. I mean, if you got some leads from your website, you don't want to say, hey, have you checked out my website yet? Because obviously they have.
Right, right. I
Yeah,
guess,
we
and
have.
I'm not familiar with MailChimp, and I don't know how many people are. So I guess, is that a separate system outside of your system?
Sure, yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, it is a separate system. It starts at $10 a month to get an autoresponder account with them. Um, it's just A-class email delivery like Aweber or any Constant Contact, any of these other A-class email providers. Um, I know a lot of CRMs have it built into their system. It's just email deliverability is really too important for us to build it into our system. Like that's why we use an external provider.
Okay.
Yeah, and
That
I
makes
think
sense.
And then does your system have the capability for me within this system to set up the search, the property search for them, or is that something that the other vendor is going to do for me?
Yeah, that's a really good question. At the moment, we can't do that. So we're looking at ways where we can automate that because, you know, like we talked about before, I realize how important that is that, you know, the leads are getting sent that information. At the moment, if you're using our system, you need to set that up with your website or, you know, your MLS search.
right, and I see where you're going with that, Dan. I like the approach that you guys have taken with this because, and that's where I kind of came up with website neutral, or if you want to call it lead generation source neutral, because what can happen on the flip side too, and I think this is different for everybody's business and partly why you want to assess all these things, is you can go in deep with, like an IDX solution that does a lot of that stuff, but then all of your data is tied into that one thing. And
Sure.
so if you want to try out Zerpal and then you want to try out Tiger Leads, or you want to try out, you know, uh, God forbid you want to try out Zillow or Trulia, and you're doing a good job of your follow up, like you say, it's like where is like the Switzerland of places where I can plunk all this stuff, but it still gets followed up with, and um, maybe some people who are dealing with other lead sources. I mean, I pay a database manager to enter in the leads, like the few straggler leads of stuff that I just don't have time to enter in throughout the day. So you've automated that part of the approach, and I'll tell you, even most, if not all, of the IDX providers out there, they do not have a mass email feature. So, like, what I'm doing is I think I mentioned this to you. I got all my leads, I got all my stuff. A lot of our pay-per-click stuff is run through Boomtown, just like Jim is using Zerpal a lot, and I have to do an export and then import into, right now for mass email I use Infusionsoft.
Right. Gotcha.
And but if they're already getting on these different lists in MailChimp, for do you have agents using your system who send out broadcast emails from MailChimp? Because that's really the other feature besides autoresponders that MailChimp offers, right? Is the mass email feature.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you just want to send mass emails, actually MailChimp is free to have 2,000 um,
Right.
subscribers. So yeah, MailChimp is a great service to be doing that because they're going to provide you all the stats on, was this delivered 100%? Was this, how many times was this opened? You can get targeted because we send them across, where the lead came from, when they entered the system, what stage they're at. But yeah, really, if you're serious about email marketing, you need to be using someone like MailChimp or Infusionsoft or you really need to be super confident in your CRM that they've got their stuff handled on the back end to make sure that your emails are actually even making it to the inbox. Like, are they providing the
Right.
stats on open rates and things like that? Because if you're not getting those kind of stats, I mean, you don't know how effective
And it's
what you're
probably
doing is.
it's probably kind of
Well,
like in
again,
that.
let me. Can I jump in real quick here? I'm trying to figure out how this. It appears to me the word CRM gets bantied around by so many people. This doesn't look like a CRM. This looks like a lead management system. A CRM to me is recording real detailed information about your clients, and then having the opportunity to do past customer follow up and reminding of birthdays and things. This doesn't look like this. This looks like something. And let me lay it on the line here. I'm happy with what Zerpal does for the acquaintance, the person who jumps on the system, registers, it starts sending them properties, and then what it does is it treats them a little bit. I think it's the same guys who program slot machines, and I'm not joking about this. That they have guys who program these electronic slot machines based on how long you hesitate between the different plays and whatever. They actually play with your psychology to get you to invest more money. And the way Zerpal works is it will watch, and if suddenly a person becomes active again, says, hey, welcome back, it looks like you're back looking, it looks at what they're doing, and it sends these tickler emails. It does an exceptional job in that respect, and it gives them a feed. What it doesn't have is my ability to customize anything. I can't schedule in Zerpal a follow-up call. I mean, there's no place for me to put in. What it does is it just, in fact, what happens is once I make contact with a customer, if I forget, it keeps sending the general response stuff each time, trying to get them to initiate contact. And then and they'll respond to it and go, well, we just talked about this yesterday, Jim. So sometimes I screw up and I
Yeah.
don't deactivate that, so it looks like, I didn't even listen to the conversation we had. I'm trying to figure out, how do I use your system with Zerpal? And what would be the benefits of using? Because it looks like this would allow me. I'm happy with the email drips they're getting. I'm happy with the MLS feeds they're getting. But it doesn't remind me to make a phone call. It doesn't. So what I'm doing is I'm having to put it in my CRM, manually input it into my CRM. So I remember to make those phone calls. I take those more detailed notes. I'm just trying to figure out, how would I use
Sure.
something like this with a Zerpal or with a Boomtown? What's the extra layer this gives me? Because Sean, you would know better. Does Boomtown track this stuff and tell me what my lead conversions are and stuff like that?
It only tracks parts of it. And that's where I think it's different for everybody on how much you want to get into a particular product versus have everything be neutral. But maybe you can say, Dan, in terms of like here with George Bartlett. So what all else is it tracking, or like, can I put in an address, or is it mostly web-based stuff, or how does that work?
Uh, yeah, I mean, you can put address information in there. You can record a lot of the same stuff that you would in a CRM. Like, for example, you can make notes in here. If you want to make a follow-up call scheduled, that's just 2 clicks. You just click here, follow-up, and click when you would like to make that call. Then that's created a task for you, which will show up in your system. And when it comes time to make that call, you're going to get a reminder on the day, and it's also going to show up in the follow-up boss system.
So I can
Hey guys, can
enter
I just
in.
grab the door? Sorry, I'll be
Sure.
straight back.
Okay.
Just someone keeps ringing.
Maybe he's got somebody he needs to follow up with. Jim, are you still there? Boy, did everybody just leave the call? I'm the only one left now. So Jan, let me go back to Jan's question: how many campaigns are in the system and how long do they run? So Jan, so I hope that's clear with everybody. If you're familiar with something like Aweber or MailChimp, basically you got the ability to send mass emails and drip follow-up sequences, and the drip follow-up sequences are being triggered from follow-up boss. and depending, I think he's got that triggered based on what type of lead they are in the system. So if they're a nurture or an active buyer, active seller, pending closed, I'm guessing that's how it goes.
I'm back.
Oh, hey,
Sorry about that,
doing good.
guys. Sorry about it, everyone.
That's okay. So,
Yes.
yeah,
So just another point that sort of Jim raised is you want to be thinking about how you can be using one system. I mean, if you got Boomtown, I would try and be thinking about how can I do everything in Boomtown, not how can I go and add follow-up boss um,
right.
to your system, unless you really understand your strategy. Because this is what I see some people doing. And someone came to me the other week. They said, "Dan, I've got two systems already. I think it was Wise Agent and Conversion or something like that. I'm thinking about adding follow-up boss." And I just said, "What are you talking about? Like, what? Why?" And I just said, "Look, your agents, are they using the systems you have? No. Um, well, do you think adding an extra one is going to help? Like, this is just where it comes back to focusing on the important stuff. Don't focus on buying um, multiple systems. Like, there's a place for that, but you really got to understand the strategy. And I mean, if you're not using one system effectively, you're not going to use two or three.
Yeah, and I think I will just mention this for a second too, because I have been through quite a few different real estate CRMs with my team, and the other thing that I'm always stressing with all of the vendors that I speak to, and something that I love about, in particular, Dan, that I think you guys really hit it on the head with, is the actual user interface. I mean, if you look at this thing, it's pretty easy to read and to navigate and to click. There, like you said, 2 clicks to schedule a follow-up call. I'm guessing that the learning curve is pretty short with the system.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I mean, you can't
yeah,
give agents something that's complicated because um, it's just that's not your job. Like your job isn't to be in front of a computer all day working out complicated software. I mean, this just
right.
lets you, and
Calling
this is
tech
why,
support and everything else.
yeah, like yeah, how to export data from one system to another system. I mean, it's it's just that's low value stuff. I mean, that's why with this system we don't do like some of the more detailed CRM stuff like what's this person's kid's birthday, because we know that agents are in a lot of cases aren't using those features. So we've just kept this super simple so that you can focus on the important stuff like making the phone calls and getting them some drip campaigns to your non-responsive leads
Right. Yeah.
rather than focus on every other little detail, because that's where some systems have gone wrong. Just every time someone's asked for a new field or a new feature, they've added it, and it just ends up being too complicated for anyone to get started with, I think.
Yeah, that's right. You end up with 967 contact fields, and actually,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
95% of the users use like 7 of them.
yeah. We imported someone's data to our system the other day. Because basically what we do is a free trial, and once people come on board, we help them import their data and get set up with their MailChimp account. But their data was like 50, it was more than that. There was like 100 fields almost. Like it was like, what is this person's details? They can have like several different addresses. Then it's like, who's their partner? And then they can have like every other field again. Um, what's the point of that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I
Maybe
gotta
I'm
I
missing
gotta
something.
do a shout out to a good realtor friend of mine in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I think he was on the call earlier here, Andy Piper. But I mean, just a laser focus on simplicity, because you
Yeah,
don't realize it, but a lot of that stuff can end up just overtaking your life, and you end up being like you said, like you end up being a database person, and instead of like calling your leads that are coming in every day. So there's a balance there, and that's going to be different for everybody and on your preferences as an agent. But for me, it's I think there's beauty in simplicity and effectiveness, right? I mean, there's so many things you can focus on. So I kind of like the medium that you guys have struck. You've got tasks, you've got contact info, you've got the lead sources, and you even pulled in Facebook stuff. But then to me, when I look at the screen, it's not overwhelming. Like other real estate CRMs. When we jumped off of Top Producer, I mean, I was having a training session. I'm not going to name which CRMs it was. I was having an all team in person meeting training session every month, and I would get the same questions every month. It's like, aren't you guys using the system? Or there were so many. It was like it took 7 clicks through the system to figure out, to read the details on what was happening with that contact. you know
Sure,
and
sure.
so of course I mean, here I was, spending a lot of money on this thing trying to get people to use it. But finally, after a year, I just stepped back and I said, too much. My life is too short, and I have just spent too much of people's time on something that didn't work, easy enough for them. So I have to, you know, for me, it came to simplicity of the layout, or of how you use it, how many clicks and all that kind of stuff is a vital component, I think, in anything that we as real estate agents are going to pick.
Yeah, no, I just totally agree. I mean, if you're going to be using this thing regularly to make more money and like work more leads, I mean, it needs to be easy. Otherwise, because I know there's hesitation around doing some of these activities. You don't want to add more hesitation by having some kind of clunky system that's hard to use.
Right. Good. So, okay, so we should probably kind of wrap up here. Anything else you wanna mention, Dan? And then we can tell people where to get the 14-day. You're doing a 14-day free trial. Is that right? Is that how that works?
Yep, we do a 14-day free trial. We'll help you get set up so that all your lead sources are flowing automatically into the system. For most people, that just straight away frees up between half an hour to an hour of their time each day, depending on how many leads you have and what your current process is. And yeah, that's just really going to give you a system so that if you are just managing them in email at the moment, you're going to be able to see exactly what's going on. So yeah, we'll post a link there. I can't see the questions, so if there are any other questions, maybe I can answer people by email or something like that.
Right. Yeah, Randall had a question about the slides from the webinar, so I'll follow up with you about that. But yeah, if you go to, actually, we have the 14-day trial for everybody on our website at realestatetechnologyexperts.com, and I'll email that out as well. But it's the post with Dan's picture on it, everybody, and so just go to realestatetechnologyexperts.com, click on that link in that post about the free trial, and we'll email that link out as well. And give it a go and see how Dan and his software stack up. I'm excited to hear everybody else's experiences. I've heard good things so far, and Dan will have to follow up with you and see what insights you have, maybe in the months ahead, because this is something that I think is more needed in our industry, where people like yourselves are willing to be open to questions, or suggestions, but really to kind of demo it for us, give us that on the ground perspective, that so we don't have to wait and go to a conference or something like
Yeah,
that, because
right. Yeah.
you're not at the NAR convention and stuff like that. I mean, you're focused on kind
Like,
of word
you
of
know what we're
mouth and
focused
person to
on?
person. Yeah.
Yeah, we're focused on our customers because that's the most important part of any business. We're not focused on having the biggest booth at this convention or something like that. Like that's that doesn't help our business.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, anyone that signs up for that free trial link will definitely look after you guys. Yeah, and thanks Sean and Jim for having me on the webinar, because it was really quite fun, and I'm glad to hear what you guys are doing, and yeah, I'd love to touch base soon. And
Okay.
um,
Yeah, well, we appreciate your time. I mean, I appreciate the effort you've gone through here, and your time in contacting, responding to me and stuff, because as real estate agents and as an industry, I think we need more people like you coming out with awesome products and ideas to save us time and energy. If we're going to increase the level of satisfaction with our industry, and not become the next travel agents, we're going to have to do and implement more stuff from creative people like you. So thank you for coming on and spending your time with us too. I appreciate that.
Yeah, anytime. Thanks, guys.
Okay. And Jim, thank you also for coming on. I think maybe Jim kind of lost his connection out there in LA. I don't know what happened. Maybe he had a hot lead he had to follow up with instead. But
Yeah, I think he
appreciate.
heard how important it is, and he just had to go.
It's like, I just got 2 leads to give him. So so thanks everybody for coming on. Appreciate your time. I'm gonna we always record these, so hopefully this recording went okay. And as always, you can reach out to myself, Sean Gorse. It's be at Sean SEAN at realestatetechnologyexperts.com. Although one of the best ways to get a hold of me, my my personal preference is Facebook message. So reference that if you try to reach out to me on Facebook, and I'll connect with you there. And thanks again for coming on. And this is going to conclude our new real estate tech tour. Thanks again, Dan, and thanks to everybody. Have a good rest of the week.
Thanks, guys.